Hello and welcome. It's a great shame not to be in person with a number of our friends that we know have tuned in. Vaccines willing, it won't be too long before we can all meet up and do this in a much more face-to-face, nice social environment. Wide range in the audience. We go all the way from very senior, experienced risk managers through to some new entrants into the industry. So therefore, this presentation, Navigating Lloyd's, a broker's view, is going to be pitched where we feel we can take as much of the audience with us as possible. The goal is to be educational, insightful, topical, and relevant. We will move at pace. There is going to be a Q&A at the end. So if we've gone too quickly, there's something you want to come back to, you've got plenty of opportunity to ask questions. The Q&A is there for you to use. We're going to cover Lloyd's overview, the marketplace, the subscription market, part of what makes Lloyd's different. We're going to provide some top tips, some hot topics, the Q&A panel I've mentioned, and at the very end, free is a lexicon that begins to explain the London brokerese that we fall into the habit of using, just to sort of nicely translate for you. So, a broker's view. We are from Miller, delighted to be sharing the platform with Lloyd's. And for those of you that don't know Miller, here is a brief introduction, couple of minutes from our CEO, Greg Collins. We're both in the office and nicely, safely distanced, but I'm going to slide the presentation around. Here we go.
And good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I'd just like to talk to you and really excited about the opportunity to just give you 2 minutes on Miller and our platform. So Miller is one of the leading independent specialist brokers in the London and international marketplace, acting for insureds and reinsurers, direct and MGA platforms as well. We currently place about 35% of all of our business out of the US market into the international marketplaces. So we're doing about $3 billion of premium into the market a year, and a substantial proportion of that is placed into the Lloyd's market. In addition to that, we're recognized within our specialty lines areas as being one of the top 2 or 3 brokers in the areas that we've chosen to be in. So we're a highly specialized business, and I think if you look at the next slide, you can see what lines of business we're in. So in many areas of our business, we're representing our clients at the very top level in the marketplace, and have plenty of firepower at our disposal to enable us to work on behalf of our client base. We're acting for you as our clients in North America. We have no offices in North America, and certainly have no plans to have anybody on the ground in the United States of America at any point in time. So we're acting totally independently on behalf of you, our clients in the North American market. And I'm really pleased that you can all be here today for us to share with Lloyd's and talk a little bit more about the opportunity that there is in the marketplace for us all to familiarize ourselves with how Lloyd's in the London market operates. So on that note, I think I'm handing over to Enya from Lloyd's, who's going to take you through the next session on why the Lloyd's market. So thank you all very much for dialing in today.
So why London? You know, the question come up very often. My name is Enya. I represent Lloyd's Corporation here in the region. I also lead the practice of risk management for Lloyd's US. Thank you so much, John and Jamie, and thank you, Greg, for your team, who has been wonderful partners for Lloyd's team. So regarding why Lloyd's and why London, people come to London for capacity. When you try to fill the tower, you come to London trying to fill up that additional capacity you needed. You also come to London for the expertise in underwriting, you know, in particular for specialty lines, whether it's marine, energy, construction, aviation, whether it's contingency, professional lines, cyber D&O, E&O, you come to London for such expertise in those lines. London may not be the cheapest, but we always trying to be the most consistent. And as far, next slide, please. So Lloyd's has been the leader in the E&S space. So if you're working in the US, I'm sure the audience may be from different countries, given RIMS being global nowadays. But in the US, Lloyd's is primarily active in the so-called excess and surplus space. So if you look at the numbers, as far as the rankings are concerned, Lloyd's has been the leader in the E&S space for years, and we're number one, leading in terms of premium written in the US. We're also leading in the reinsurance space. Lloyd's is licensed both in E&S and reinsurance in the US. On the reinsurance space, we're number 5, and one of the largest non-domiciled reinsurance company in the US. Next slide, please. So as far as the E&S market share of Lloyd's versus the domestic E&S market is concerned, we're also growing together. As you can tell, from 2014 to 2019, we have grown tremendously, and our market share has now about a quarter of the entire E&S market in the US is taken by Lloyd's. And we truly enjoy working with our partners like Miller and many others in the region and trying to develop a access point for Lloyd's. Next slide, please. So why Lloyd's? The biggest thing about Lloyd's is we have financial security, robust strength financially, which is represented in the ratings. There are 3 agencies really dominant in the rating space. So we have A rating with AM Best, A+ with S&P, and AA-, which is also very strong with Fitch ratings. We also have been known for the so-called Lloyd's chain of security, which is 3 layers of financial backing of Lloyd's claims. So on the first level, you have those assets for each syndicate. They put premium income aside, backing all the claims. And this is a 3-year accounting cycle to make sure premium are there supporting our claims. We also have members fund at Lloyd's. These are also their own funds, but they put together in the Lloyd's level to support the claim. And then on top of those 2 individual funds, we also have the central asset, which is almost like a mutual fund. This is Lloyd's Corporation have control of those $4 billion. So all together, you have close to $100 billion of financial backing of Lloyd's claims. So yes, we are part of E&S. We don't have the state guarantee fund backing Lloyd's claims, like you don't have those guarantee fund for any E&S market claims, but we have much more. If you have a policy, $500 million policy limit, you won't have much protection from state guarantee fund, but you will have over nearly $100 billion of financial backing in Lloyd's policy. So that's where we take so much comfort in offering our coverage, because we are strongly financially strong. We also have the 3 layers of chain security backing Lloyd's claims. I believe it's time for me to pass on to Jamie.
Thank you very much, Enya. And hi all, my name's Jamie Young. I work in our North American team here at Miller. So taking a step back and just thinking about what it is that Lloyd's are really doing. So I think when most people think about Lloyd's, they associate it with complex, niche, specialist risks. The key word I want you to remember here is approach. So Lloyd's takes, and all of its constituent parts, take a specialist approach to all risks, whether high volume, MGA, or open market, individual risks. And this is really the way we like to think about it. Next slide, please, Mark. And so we also think of Lloyd's as a giant shopping mall, and with your brokers going into Lloyd's as the professional buyers, tailoring programs, creating insurance programs for our clients, and ultimately the end insureds. Next slide, please, Mark. So for you historians out there, I'm going to take you all the way back to 1686. So England is on the brink of revolution. William of Orange is about to conquer or take over from King James II. Meanwhile, in Lombard Street in London, Edward Lloyd is in the process of establishing a coffee house. And this is where business people are gathering very regularly to insure perilous marine voyages across the world at that time. And so Lloyd's, in its inception, is really focused on marine insurance. Fast forward 300 years to today, and if it's specialist and insurable, then there's every chance that one of the Lloyd's underwriters will be specializing in that class. You can see many of the individual shops or boxes, as they're called at Lloyd's, that will be underwritten. A bit later on, some of our teams are going to talk to you about some of these products, but this just gives you a flavor for a few of those. Next slide, please, Mark. So this is the interior of Lloyd's. It's a wonderful building, and I do recommend once travel resumes, and if you're ever in London, I'd highly recommend you to pay a visit and take one of the wonderful tours of Lloyd's. As you can see, it's a really dynamic marketplace, and clearly at the moment, this, the volume of people and footfall isn't as high, but we're all really looking forward to getting back to Lloyd's in all of its glory very soon. Next slide, please, Mark. So yes, on any given day, there are over 200 broking firms and their representatives going into Lloyd's, taking your risks in, speaking to underwriters, getting their attention, over almost 100 of those syndicates specializing in various lines. And as John alluded to, something that really differentiates Lloyd's is the subscription nature of business. So not only do individual syndicates compete for business, but they also collaborate on large and complex risks to form 100% of the placement. And I'm going to hand back to John now, who's going to tell you a bit more about that.
Jamie, thank you very much. So into the room. And the room is where all of the syndicates, who are the trading units at Lloyd's, 87 of them, are visited by the brokers, of which Miller is one. Over 200 brokers in Lloyd's, so plenty of choice and options for you there. And the same is true within the marketplace. So Mark, if you can move on, we're going to get into subscription. So follow the leader. There are a number of terms that we use in London. And remember, there's a free lexicon at the end, which will help explain some of them. But by subscription market, at the bottom here, we've actually put a definition in for you. And I'm going to quickly read that so it's all clear. Placement with multiple underwriters participating for percentages that add up to 100% of the placement order. So we will always get to 100%, but if there's a 10% order or a 20% order, it will be 100% of that amount. So how do we begin to do that? Part of our task is to understand, excuse me, the ecosystem where the knowledge is based in terms of the underwriters. They are specialists. They are providing capacity in a highly competitive arena. They specialize by line of business. They might be energy, they might be D&O, they might be sharing economy, they might be media. And by territory, for the purpose of this audience, mainly US, but among you, you have risks scattered around the world. Lloyd's and those underwriters also have knowledge of that. And they also differentiate and specialize by distribution channel. This is a risk management community. We would therefore typically see that as being open market business, where each risk is gradually built up line by line. But there are those underwriters who specialize in reinsurance treaty. They take volume business. And there are some who specialize in managing general agent business, where the business is, the underwriting pen is with somebody on the ground handling volume. So we have a large risk that's come in. Let's say it's going to be a theme park or an adventure park. We need to go and find the right people that really understand that type of risk And in this case, we're going to place the, let's say, the terrorism, because that's coming up later. We now need to know who specializes in terrorism, who has services that they can offer to our client. And we're going to go and ask not one, not two, but maybe 3 or 4 different underwriters that specialize. We want to know their terms and what they think about the risk. We're going to ask for pricing indications based on the submission that we've received, and we're going to put those terms back to the retail broker, the wholesale broker, who in turn will communicate with the risk manager. The risk manager will determine which of the options they prefer, and they will ask, can we now go and get support for those terms? The underwriter that came up with the most applicable terms, it might not be price, it might be breadth of coverage, now becomes the lead underwriter. They have set the terms and they will manage the risk throughout the duration. Let's say it's a 12 months policy. If they take a 25% share of a 100% order, we now have to go and find the other 75%. Those underwriters become what are termed follow underwriters. So if you follow that, it's just like syndicating a loan. We now build out the capacity. The beauty of the subscription market is that that could be different layers. It could be a primary layer, an excess layer. It might be a quota share tower. But we'll navigate that. We'll play underwriters one against the other. Oh, you didn't win on the primary, but the excess is maybe a better risk anyway. And we'll invite them to set the terms on that. So Mark, if we move through. So having established a lead underwriter, the follow underwriter, what are the advantages of that for the policyholder? I've mentioned the specialist approach. That can be highly complex. It could be challenging D&O. It could be a SPAC or even a DSPAC. How many people really know about that? There are some specialists there that do. We then get into the innovative side because lots of underwriters working together in the ecosystem, they are competing for risk, but they also collaborate. They share ideas, although they want to compete for business and for share. We know who will support which underwriters they will follow. So any given risk, when it comes in, we have the terms. The lead underwriter is somebody that is recognized and supported by others. We build out the placement. If it's something that is slightly more innovative, it could be into, as I said, the sharing economy. It could be new technology. Innovation can just be incremental. It might just be the way that the wording is changed to really fit into an industry sector. That takes specialization. Not everyone can be a specialist in everything, and that is where the underwriters who follow know which underwriters to follow on particular lines of risk. Capacity can therefore be built in the open market. We offer continuity. If we have 10 underwriters on a risk, should strategy change, somebody decides to exit a class of business, we've lost an underwriter. But we've got 9 others already committed who will probably take up that share. So the continuity is built in. Lead underwriters tend to be in the class for years and years and years. It's the follow market, which can ebb and flow, but that's all part of the fun of being a Lloyd's broker and knowing who's doing what. I mentioned the capacity, the magic word, facilities. It's ubiquitous, you've probably all picked up on it. This is simply a term that London brokers use to describe efficiency in saying, we have a lot of volume or repetition of a particular line of business. These are the specialist underwriters. They are always the leaders. You always follow. Let's put together a facility. Now that could be in-house binding authority with the broker, or it could just be a loose panel that we corral together when each risk comes in. Lots of different ways of doing it. Hopefully that's making some sense. As we go through, you're going to get some cases from my colleagues will make more sense. Anyway, it is that subscription market, going in there, knowing who's doing what, trading, that makes all the difference, and it brings the market to life and gets the blood moving in the veins of the broker when you've got the last 5% to go and who's going to do it for you. It's great fun, it's challenging, and it keeps insurance exciting. And Mark, if we move on to the next slide. And just quickly here, right. So why do clients come to London? Mark, I think if you hit the button, here we go. The double-decker bus and a graphic representation. Enya actually touched on most of this in there, but there's the graphic for it. Complex, reputation, knowledge, claims payment, it's all in there. Mark, let's keep moving. I said we go at pace. So how do you get to London? How do you do it? This looks a little bit like the London Underground tube map, but in fact, on the left-hand side there, the policyholder, the buyer, the insured, they will use a retail broker. That retail broker then has different options on what to do with the risk in conjunction with the risk manager. They can go to the domestic market. The domestic market will probably have some reinsurance. Often the reinsurance, particularly CAT, comes back into Lloyd's. The retail broker might choose to go to a domestic wholesale broker who specializes in a particular line of business. It's the most efficient way to get things done. They will come to the London wholesale broker who specializes in that. And it goes to Lloyd's. Retail broker also has the option on lots of small volume business to use the cover holder. That's the person who holds the pen on the ground out there. And they will also come to Lloyd's. You can see how the channels all work. But don't worry if that's a little bit too complicated, because Mark, next slide. In terms of thinking of how to get here, just think of it. It's not Lloyd's is number one in the E&S market. It's number one for a reason. Just think of it as another E&S market. Your broker on the ground will come to London, and it is our job to navigate and manage the process for you with your broker. Next slide. So the London broker, what are we doing? Hopefully you can see in there the shopping mall, and you can see all the different floors. Each of those boxes, as we call them, the desk for the underwriter, is a trading unit. They all have capacity. We know how to navigate around. So the London broker adds value for the underwriters. We can pretty much know from the desk roughly what a price is going to be on standard risks because we specialize. There's a lot of volume coming in and we can act as a filter. This isn't going to work, or that isn't ready to go to the market because the quality of the submission, there are clearly some pieces missing. Let's get that sorted. Then we take it in, because your submission, as you're going to hear all the way through, is absolutely key. We go and get quotes. I've already explained that process for you, or process. We then go and place the risk physically. We go and see the underwriters. It is also done electronically. We then service it. We keep advice in terms of what's going on, and we collect the claims, the most important part of all. Remember the chain of security? Lloyd's paying its claims. We are also the relationship and communications manager, ultimately for the policyholder. By UK law, we are always working for the policyholder. We are the agent of the insured. The product innovation, you're going to hear more about that. We will bring those ideas back to you. And we are hopefully the source of knowledge and experience, because this is what we do for a living. And we've built up years and years of knowledge. Mark, let's keep moving. The piece that we probably haven't touched on, it is face-to-face, back to that coffee house that Jamie was talking about. We still have that face-to-face. You saw the cavern that is Lloyd's. We go and sit with those underwriters. We talk to them. Technology is helping. It is enabling. There is a big investment by Lloyd's, by brokers. We have traded through remotely through the pandemic. Here we are. But that face-to-face dialogue is still, for us, absolutely critical, because You can look people in the whites of the eyes and know if that is the best price, those are the best terms, or you just got to give them that little nudge. That's how it all works. And Mark, the next one. Some top tips. You're a broker, as I've said, by law, we are representing you. So think of your broker as an extension of your team. They are in law. And the better we understand you, the better we can represent you. I mentioned the lead underwriters. That lead underwriter is your custodian through the whole process, from setting the terms, the conditions. When you add something to your policy that normally they wouldn't do, because it's you, you've got a relationship with them, they understand how important it is for your business, you get it done. Your broker. We are specialists. We don't do aviation. We don't do motor. We don't do space. Choose your broker very carefully for the long term. And for the brokers out there that have tuned in, don't spread it too thinly, because you're going to go down in terms of the priority list and the service won't be there for you, your clients. Differentiate your accounts, the quality of the submissions, that's going to come up time and time again, and maintain the dialogue. This is one of those cases where silence is not golden, especially in this environment. Some top tips. Mark. So a cheesy slide for me to end with. Mark, if you hit the next button, we've got the underwriter on the left-hand side there, your London broker, and with good dialogue, collaboration, ongoing. When we can all meet, let's meet. It cements it. And Mark, the final one, we get a happy client. That is our goal. And with that, I'm going to pass back to Jamie Young, who's, I think, going to take you into some hot topics.
Thanks very much, John. So a really sweeping overview of Lloyd's and the London market there. We covered a lot in a very short space of time, so there is that chance to ask questions at the end of the presentation. Just type them in the chat box, and the more challenging, the better. We love a challenge here at Miller. So the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to spend on a selection of our teams. They're going to give you an overview, very brief, of their products and the areas that they focus on. Important to state, this is just what's trending at the moment. It's not the full range of Miller products or indeed the Lloyd's offering. If you would like more information on a different class of business, we can easily make that available. So first up is D&O, which I know is really topical right now. So Abbe, I'm going to hand over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody, for that amazing introduction. Hello, I'm Abbe Fielden, and I work in the US D&O, FI, and Reps and Warranties team. I've been in the market for 15 years, and 10 of those have been with Miller. Our D&O team consists of 10, soon to be 11 brokers, and our book is approximately $90 million of gross written premium, which makes us one of, if not the largest D&O team in London. The team recently won the Insurance Insider Award for Best D&O Broker in London, which was voted for by our peers and is something we are extremely proud of. I'll give you a brief overview of what D&O is for those of you who need it. D&O insurance is in place to protect corporate directors and officers and the company itself against litigation exposure whilst carrying out professional duties. These lawsuits can be costly to defend and can expose individual directors to significant personal liability. This insurance protects those individuals and offsets the risk of these claims from the company balance sheet. It can be bought by any company of any size, public or private. So the main part of our book at Miller is publicly traded US accounts, which London is very much a home for. We're in the middle of the hardest market anyone has ever seen, but carriers are holding steady on coverage, and core carriers are seeing a dramatic growth in the size of their book, with more capacity recently joining, and we expect more by the end of the year. Carriers will consider any strategy, apart from cannabis. It's still a big no for us, unfortunately, with a minimum market cap level of $150 million. We also have an option for those micro cap traded accounts, so those traded on the OTC or pink sheet risks. There's a dedicated carrier who operates only in that sphere. We have great success with those. All of these carriers will consider primary, excess, and side A options. I know the hot topic very much is SPACs and de-SPACs, which I will demystify on the next slide, so I'll keep going. But our team also looks after the US financial institutions business. London is still very much a home for this larger FI business, with a particular sweet spot being investment managers, private equity, and venture capital companies. The markets will consider E&O, D&O, fiduciary, and crime coverage. EPL is tricky, but we can get it on a sub-limited basis in some cases, depending on the risk. Again, these carriers will consider primary, excess, and side A options. It's not just US domiciled business that we have significant success with, but something we call reverse flow business, which is whereby the entity in question has a global or an EU footprint, headquarters, majority of their operations, but with also a US touch point. So they might have operations, offices, etc. in the US. It needs a global policy and comes to us because it opens up an awful lot of options using that international address. And it's something that we place regularly with great success. The other string to our bow is the reps and warranties, or mergers and acquisition, or transaction liability business. We have great relationships with the carriers here in London. We're very close to them and they are extremely responsive, which is exactly what you need on deals like this. They consider both buy and sell side options, and they have a global appetite, but they have a particular sweet spot for US deals where their value is between 25 and 200 million. Next slide, please. Wonderful. So this is the hot topic, which is SPAC and de-SPACs. It's an alternative to an IPO, and SPAC stands for Special Purpose Acquisition Company. The market has absolutely exploded in recent months. To those of you that know, I'm sure you feel our pain. Various reasons, such as cost, regulatory requirements, pandemic has definitely helped it along. And the domestic market, I know, is very hectic with carriers and brokers alike all trying to find the right solution. So I'd just give you an update on where London stands on this business. So for US domiciled special purpose acquisition companies, we only have Beazley who will consider this risk in London. They have built a dedicated product with a suite of wordings designed especially for SPACs. So as I'm sure you can imagine, they are absolutely flooded with a raft of submissions every single day. They're not writing every single one of them, but they are pinpointing the ones that they do want. So they consider maybe about 3 out of 10. But those that they do like, they can be very, very flexible, very innovative, and they can provide one-off bespoke solutions for that specific SPAC, which is one of a kind, I think, in this market. So depending on the working capital and the cash flow requirements of the client, Beazley can put together limit structure options, which can be flexible to that client at the time, which is, as we believe, one of a kind. So they offer 2-year terms as well and can address runoff provisions at the front end. So for non-US SPACs, it's a slightly broader market, maybe 3 more markets, but it's very much a similar approach. So moving on to the right-hand side, which is de-SPACs, which is the post-acquisition company. There is a slightly broader market for it. There's several more carriers to consider, but it's treated very much like an IPO. So underwriters will quote it like an IPO, pricing retentions will be like an IPO, and they will expect the risk to meet the same requirements as an IPO. So they'll need to be convinced of longevity and sustainability of the business. But there is a lot more limit around for that type of business. So the top tip, I suppose, would be, as John said, the quality of your submission will be absolutely key here, and as much notice as you can possibly give, because obviously with SPACs and IPOs, there will be a listing date, and we obviously want to get that sorted as soon as we possibly can. So a call will be required on every single IPO and every single SPAC by carriers. So if you could get in front of that with your clients and suggest dates and times, we can pitch those to underwriters to make sure their calendars are free for you. And any kind of documentation you can get. So the draft prospectuses for these types of deals are called S1s and S4s. Even if they're in draft format, that helps us greatly to get ahead of the curve. Any other questions you have on any of this stuff, obviously at the end and offline, of course, we're here for you. And I will hand over to Claire Fisher, who'll talk to you about terrorism.
Thank you, Abby. Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Fisher, and I work in the terrorism team here at Miller. So prior to 9/11, the peril of terrorism was picked up in the property market. However, overnight, the market imposed exclusions and restrictions, and at the same time, lenders made terrorism insurance a requirement. As such, the standalone market was born. However, the capacity was few and far between, and the rates were very high. However, we've had a change of tune, and today we are one of the last bastions of the soft market, and we like to be that little ray of sunshine in everyone's renewals. So our standalone terrorism product does compete with TRIA, which is the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act offered by the all-risk market. We believe the terrorism product is superior to the TRIA offering. I'm just going to go through a couple of reasons why. So TRIA needs to go through a certification process. And in the event, we believe that this is going to be a very lengthy political decision and not in the best interest of your client. Moreover, it doesn't take into consideration, it doesn't allow that if an event is under $5 million worth of property damage, it's not considered an act of terrorism. And if we talk about pricing quickly, the standalone terrorism market is very used to pricing this risk and is underwritten by insurers who have dedicated underwriters for this peril. However, the TRIA pricing is a percentage of the all-risk premium and does not adequately price for this peril. For example, cat exposed is likely to be overpriced and therefore better coming to the standalone market. Now, the market capacity is in excess of 3 billion. We have capacity of up to 1 billion, but we can of course go into the standalone market if required. We work across all industry sectors, whether that's domestic or international as well. Now, a hot topic on everyone's mind at the moment is strikes, rights and civil commotion, otherwise known as SRCC cover, due to the recent events that we've seen over the last 18 months in the US. This is a standard exclusion under the terrorism form. However, we can quote this in the standalone market, and we have done this for a number of our clients recently. We have seen where instances where the all-risk market are looking to impose exclusions, and this is where we can really help you and your clients fill in that gap. Now, I'm just going to briefly touch on a couple of success stories we've had. So the US, we've worked with a US major real estate portfolio, and they have some large iconic buildings in city centres, as well as a global stock program. And in reaction to the SRCC events we saw last year, they saw this product as a great fit for them. So in summary, this is a better product, a better price, and certainty of cover for your clients. So I'm going to now pass over to David Elliot, who will talk about active assailant. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Elliot, and I head up the Terrorism Active Assailant practice here at Miller. I've been in the industry since 1999, and come January would have been at Miller for 20 years. So I'm here to speak about active assailant and the product that is. And I think certainly at the moment we see there's real value in this, particularly as the world opens up post-COVID. And really it is a product that supports that where there are people and that duty of care to people, this product really comes into its own. The product itself had its origins in the education sector following this very unfortunate growth in the number of shooting events. But what the product has now evolved to be is to make sure that it covers, it doesn't matter who's done it, why they've done it, or how they've done it. So it doesn't pre-prescribe any of those factors. So it doesn't matter who, why, or how. Miller has currently one of the largest books of placing this business into the market. So just more onto the product itself, and it's important to refer to it as a product rather than just an insurance policy, because yes, the product does cover the financial protection aspects of things, the risk transfer, which is the property damage, the business interruption, the loss of attraction, the legal liability following a loss. But very importantly, it also covers the crisis management exposure. And we see that this is really added value. It's that expertise and assistance that can be provided to your insureds. And I think what we see is that it's really important to have that support and support from experts who have been through the crisis themselves, who can help manage the insured through the process. See it as a big red button that can be hit following a loss, that the experts come running to surround you with what to say, what not to say, and help navigate post a loss. The role of a risk manager is to future-proof the business. And we see that that is a real added value of having this expertise that is surrounded. We have a facility that has a broad range of appetite across multiple sectors, and we have a dedicated $25 million facility. We've placed risks from Las Vegas casinos to hospitals to universities, and most recently a big Midwestern theme park. We've included in here some benchmarking of some of the limits that get purchased, but really it's open to all industry sectors. And now I'll pass on to Georgina Robinson for the construction side of things.
Thank you, David. Thank you everyone for your time. My name is Georgina Robinson and I work as an account executive for the Onshore construction team. I'm going to talk to you today about one of our products, which is the Contractors Plant and Equipment Facility. And it would be helpful if I gave you a background as to why we have this. We started this process last year as we identified a need to bring a solution to our clients. And we identified some Lloyd's markets that we worked with. We had our first meetings post-lockdown, but everything else was negotiated. So we were all working from home, but it still worked really well. And that's how accessible our Lloyd's underwriters are. So what we needed to do was put together a program that looked at all types of contractors, plant and equipment, as we were seeing the need that these were being pushed outside of the blanket programs. And our clients wanted a separate solution for that. So this product that we've put together, it covers contractors, plant and equipment for a range of insureds, be it general contractors, construction providers, oil and gas contractors, mining contractors, environmental industries, natural resources. That's how broad it is. And that's why we needed this kind of cover that Lloyd's can look at and wasn't very prescriptive to one type of insured. So this covers property damage and as an addition can cover loss of income when it comes to a CPE claim. We were able to design the facility so that it would cover all locations subject to sanctions, and even those locations with natural perils exposures, which we know is a difficulty for some domestic carriers. There's a minimum premium of $50,000 US, and also there's a no claims bonus if it's renewed with the same panel of insurers. The wording is very broad and it covers for most eventualities. As I said, this is looking at all types of contractors, plant and equipment, and that's why we needed a broad wording. So putting a bespoke cover like this together is what Lloyd's is good at and what we're able to do. We also wanted to make sure it had a quick turnaround time. So we worked to get quotes back to our clients within 48 hours. Some of our success stories, as shown on screen, include a large fleet of compressors that we were able to use the facility for. And this was about $1 billion. We were able to work with the facility markets to leverage this large schedule of equipment to get a competitive price and a deductible structure that met the insured's needs. And they weren't able to find this solution anywhere else. What's also great about this facility is it's marketed across different teams within Miller, as CPE has touch points across many industries. So it's not just the construction industry that I work with, it also looks at marine clients, energy and property. And I think it's through this flexible approach that we have with Lloyd's, able to design and negotiate cover, and that we fully understand our class of business and that we work with specialists. So I now hand over to Tancred, who is going to talk about cyber. Thank you.
Thanks, Georgina. My name is Tancred Lucy. I work as a broker on the cyber team at Miller. I've worked in cyber insurance since 2016 and joined Miller coming up for 2 years ago now. Cyber is something that we have all heard a lot about, particularly in the last 18 months or so. Cyber is a coverage that is of growing importance to all insureds, in our opinion, as more and more companies rely on their networks, whether they be IT or OT systems, to conduct their businesses. Much like the active assailant product that was spoken about earlier, cyber not only protects a company's bottom line, offering coverage for costs, damages, fines and claims expenses arising out of a cyber incident, but really in a key way provides that peace of mind for an insured by having a 24/7 breach hotline, which provides insureds with access on a 24/7 basis to experts at improved rates. These experts are there to help with IT forensics, so working out how the hackers got into the network, data and network restoration, getting the network back up and running so the insured can get back to continuing their business, notification to regulators and to clients. This is really important. Notifying regulators in the correct way about what has gone wrong in a timely manner is something that has to be done following numerous new legislations like CCPA and GDPR. There are also specialist law firms who help with data breach incidents and claims arising out of that, who are also available. Now, why are people talking about cyber more at the moment? Whilst there have long been losses in the cyber market, these have really increased in severity and frequency in the last 12 to 18 months. The particular focus of this has been ransomware. Previously, the largest claims were cyber crime and data breach losses. It has shifted massively towards ransomware losses. Now, this has meant this increase in losses has led to a hardening of the cyber market. Premiums are increasing. Capacity is, whilst still very plentiful, being deployed much more conservatively by underwriters, and coverage is starting to narrow. The underwriters are focusing particularly on their core appetite and cybersecurity controls. What we are seeing and what our key message for insureds is at the moment is, how prepared are you for a loss? Now, underwriters are looking for a multi-layered approach to cybersecurity that not only helps prevent losses occurring in the first place or spreading throughout the entire network, but also how prepared an insured is to recover from an incident. The key focuses for clients needs to be endpoint threat protection, multi-factor authentication, backup security, and segmentation of the network. At the moment, whilst appetite is narrowing, the things that most markets are very happy to write include healthcare, manufacturing, retail, financial institutions, and technology and energy companies. We can look at pretty much anything, however, with the exception of cannabis-related, crypto-related, gaming, and adult entertainment companies. As a team, Miller place around $40 to $50 million of GWP into the market, and we've had considerable success recently. We recently placed a tower of $250 million of cyber coverage for the world's largest shipping company. This was a really interesting example of Lloyd's. We provide retrocession insurance for a fronting company who is insuring the insured's captive. It was a multi-layered approach, and it sort of came hot on the heels of recent events such as the SolarWinds losses that were seen at the end of last year. Another really great example was a cyber and tech E&O policy for a US crowdfunding platform. With this, we used our specialist ability to create a extension to the main policy that really tailored the coverage for the crowdfunding platform and allowed them to offer a certain sense of security to the donors who were donating funds on the platform. Going forward, ransomware is the key topic of conversation at the moment, but I would also encourage you to engage with insureds on their exposure to biometric data and how that's protected. General consensus is that that is going to be the hot topic to focus on next in cyber. I'm going to pass on now to Jamie Young again, who's going to go through some of the context to speak to at Miller and also go through the lexicon.
Thank you, Tancred. Really interesting stuff there. And thank you to all of the Miller team for your presentations today. And to our audience, you can see all of the contact details for the team. If you do have any specific inquiries that you maybe want to take offline, do get in touch. I'm going to flip it back to John and Mark to see if we had any questions incoming or if we will move on to the lexicon.
Okay, Mark, if you could just sort of nudge through the slides. I think it's just two. So there we go. Some details there. If you hold there, there are a couple of questions which have come through. One or two specifics, but I think for the purpose of the audience, let's keep them general. So here's one. What is the most challenging risk you have had to place recently? Oh, there's a pretty good one. I don't know where that came from. So who on the team would like to pick that one up? Once again, what is the most challenging risk you have had to place recently?
I don't mind taking that one, John.
There we go.
I think probably the most challenging one that we've had recently is trying to place D&O for the production and distribution companies to do with the COVID vaccine, who were IPOing at the time. So we had to come across some very big questions about blood clots, quality of distribution, quantity, etc., and trying to get all carriers calmed down enough to make sure that the stock price didn't plummet immediately after IPO.
A little bit topical there. and successful?
Absolutely successful, yes. We've got, I think it's about $10–15 million at least of limit placed for them, which is extremely hard to come by in this market for a risk like that. It might even be some more we're placing at the moment. So yeah, great success, and the client is delighted.
So when you were saying recently, this is ongoing. Brilliant stuff.
Yes.
Thank you. But it does show the variety and the appetite in terms of the underwriters, and you get that specialization in there. Anybody else want to pick that one up before or otherwise I can fire another question here that I've got in front of me? Challenging risk? No.
John, I'll mention that we were asked to place a risk for that was going on in Myanmar right at the point of the obviously the coup that was going on at the time. So obviously it's a changing political landscape, and trying to get coverage was a bit of a moving feast, but we managed to do it.
Well, there we are. I said at the start we'd try and be topical and relevant. I don't think it could have timed that much better, because I mean we didn't know. You didn't have to know what the question was going to be. I'm going to ask another one that I've got in front of me here. Oh, here's a good one. How has trading been with remote working? Now I'm assuming that's because we've been talking about face-to-face trading for the last 13–14 months. So how has trading been with remote working? Who'd like to pick that one up?
I'm happy to answer that one, John.
Go for it.
I think it's worked well enough as we've all adapted, and I think we were all thrown into this situation, as everyone around the world was, not knowing how to handle it and using our relationships to be able to pick up the phone to talk to underwriters and speak, arrange Zoom calls, arrange video calls, getting them responsive on email. It is still working. We can't wait to get back to see them face to face at Lloyd's, but it has worked, and we've still been able to maintain those relationships.
Brilliant.
Yes, and I would agree with that. And I think the relationships have actually been, with the virtual world, has actually increased over the pond. But we saw a phenomenal growth last year. We grew over 26% in trading last year, which was with flat or reducing premium levels. So there was an increased flow of business coming to London. And I think with the electronic trading platforms, that also facilitated that greatly.
Excellent. I mean, so who would have predicted that? March 18th, we had to leave the office. Well done. Okay, I think probably make this the last one before I get on to the lexicon. Oh, hang on. This is really live because that was a straight quick follow on. The question is Q&A. Oh, I've lost the question now. I think it was, yeah, here we go. This is to all panelists. A lot of firms in the US are shifting jobs to work from home on a permanent basis. Does London plan on bringing everyone back so face-to-face will be a reality again? Anybody want to pick that one up? Or
I don't mind doing that. I don't mind doing that.
Yeah.
I think as much as people probably enjoy being at home for some reasons, the majority of our workload is benefited by being face-to-face with these underwriters. We will miss it. It's the best part of being a London broker. We have close relationships with these carriers. We miss them very much. So I think it might be, I don't think our working life will ever be perhaps as 9 to 5, 100% of our time in the office as it was before. But I definitely think that you'll see a huge influx of everybody coming back to the market, at least 3 times a week. So, everyone misses it and probably desperate to get back.
And I'll just to follow that with an anecdote, we were placing a risk just at the point that Lloyd's reopened, and 3 underwriters had declined to write a risk to me. When Lloyd's opened up, the day that it opened, I went round and got them to agree to it by doing face-to-face. And so we really do see the value of it. But I think it will be dovetailed with the technological developments that we've seen over the last year.
Yeah, which was trending, and it's just accelerated that process that we were going through anyway. But I think David brought to life there what I don't know if I did it very well, but trying to convey that face-to-face and knowing who to see. And by sitting down with them, there is no escape. I mean, personally, I remember once hiding behind one of the pillars in Lloyd's so that the underwriter couldn't get away as he was leaving for the evening. There I was. You can't do that online. Here's another question. This is a technical one, if you're okay. Cyber. So get ready, Tancred. Does the prohibition on gaming as respects cyber refer to only gaming gambling or gaming entertainment as well? Yeah,
got that, John, thank you. So it refers to those that are involved in sort of the handling of gambling funds. For instance, we can look at resorts or hotels that host casinos and things like that. But for instance, a technology company that is designing software for an online gambling game would be excluded. It's just very, very difficult to get underwriters on board with the regulatory sort of requirements. And that's also sort of filters through to crypto and indeed cannabis, where the sort of regulations aren't clear enough at the moment. And that's really where the underwriters' concerns are.
Tancred, brilliant. Timing is going to be against us, so I think we'll have to draw a line there. But before people disappear, here we go. This is free. This is your lexicon of Lloyd's broker terminology. Like any industry, we are so guilty of falling into slang of our own. A queue in London, it's just standing in line. We're waiting for the underwriters. Anyway, this is for you. If you want more of that, we've got a much larger lexicon. It can be used for your London broker bingo. Get them on a call, share it around in your conference rooms or just on a conference call, and tick them off as they go. So there we are. You not only get a translation, you get a game as well. Hopefully that has been useful. We set out a number of objectives, and it really did turn into I think highly relevant innovation in action, and hopefully informative and insightful for you. Thank you again to Lloyd's. Thank you to RIMS. I've been John Eltham. I'm responsible for all lines North America. If you want to take any of this offline, you have the contact details. And Mark Rector, you have been a star, sir, keeping that moving with the slides. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.